You've entered BOOKSTORM with Kristen Civiletto and me, Chris Storm. This is a podcast devoted to best-selling books that matter, books that make a difference. We're diving down deep with beloved authors about their stories. We're exposing hot-button topics and heartfelt themes, the issues that affect each of us in our own lives, as siblings, parents, partners, friends, as human beings. We're braving new ideas, fresh thoughts, hard lessons, and important truths. Those kinds of things that stay with us long after we turn the last page and close the book. Welcome back to BOOKSTORM Podcast, book lovers and book listeners literally all over the world, 66 countries. We're super excited about that. All across the U.S., something like 1,230 cities. I don't know, I've lost count. You love us because we love books and you love books. And we have something very special here for you today. We have Shari Lapena. Welcome, Shari.
Well, thank you very much. I'm really excited to be here.
And you remember her first book, The Couple Next Door, hit the New York Times bestseller. I personally adored it. Well, now we're with Shari with the latest book getting ready to come out that's called Everyone Here is Lying. And yes, it is as intriguing as its title. Kristen and I devoured it. Before we dive down into the book, I want to tell you a little bit about Shari Lapena, maybe some things that you don't know. She is the #1 internationally best-selling author of 6 suspense novels. Wow. She's a former lawyer and an English teacher. What a combo.
Mm-hmm.
Shari writes full-time from a farm in Ontario where she lives with her husband. Her first thriller, The Couple Next Door, that I told you I adored, was a runaway global bestseller with 4 million copies worldwide. That is truly amazing. What congratulations.
It's still selling too. It's still selling.
Of course. It is. It was W.H. Smith's Book of the Year. It was a #1 adult fiction title in the UK for 2017. All of Shari's novels have been New York Times, UK Sunday Times, the Globe and Mail bestsellers. That is an incredible feat. 3 of her books have been Richard and Judy Book Club picks. Amazing. Her books have sold into 40 territories around the world and have been optioned for film and TV. You know what everybody says about Shari Lapena? She doesn't want you to be able to put her books down, and she got her way because we can't put them down. Thank you, Shari. Thank you so much, Shari, for this beautiful writing.
Oh, thank you for reading. I always appreciate my readers.
Well, Shari, we are here, of course, to talk about your newest book, Everyone Here is Lying. And I'll give our listeners just a little bit of the background. I'm not going to give away any spoilers.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we would love it if you want to add anything to our little summary there.
Sure.
But your story drops us right into the domestic suburban comfort of Stanhope. It's a safe neighborhood, a place for families. William Wooler is a family man on the surface, and unfortunately, he's been having some maybe an affair. I don't want to give away too much. It ended very horribly that afternoon on a motel right up the road. And when he returns to his house, he is very devastated. He's angry, but he finds his 9-year-old daughter, Avery, there. She's a little difficult, and they have some interactions. Now, he loses his temper. He leaves. Hours later, Avery's family declares her missing. Now, suddenly, this little town of Stanhope doesn't feel so safe. And William is not the only person on the street who is hiding a lie. As witnesses come forward with information that may or may not be true, we see how these neighbors become increasingly unhinged. And as this story unwinds, we are on the search for Avery, of course, but we have to ask ourselves, what are people hiding? Is everybody lying?
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to add anything to that summary?
Oh, you've done an excellent job. Yeah, that's basically what it is. It starts off with a bang, and we know that the man's cheating. We know that he hits his daughter. in the kitchen. And we know that she goes missing very soon after that. So the scene is set for a really interesting investigation, because of course the police are going to look at the family, and what they're hiding is going to come out. The fact that the father hits the child, all the stress between the two parents who are trying to parent a difficult child, it will come out. And then as the investigation grows, we find out more and more about what's going on in the street and all the different interconnected people and all the secrets they have to hide. Because, there's nothing worse if you have a secret and suddenly someone in your circle is murdered and there's an investigation, they're going to go after you. They're going to find out your secret. So everybody on the street is very, discombobulated, because when you've got people looking at you and you're trying to keep something a secret, it's difficult. So there's a lot of stress on that street when she goes missing.
Oh, there's so many layers to this story. I know we're going to have time just to explore a few of them. And I don't know, Chris, if you want to kick us off, we'll enter the storm.
I've got to tell you, I just loved it so much. I could not put it down. I love a great mystery. And all of your novels, like Kristen said, it presents so many layers, but also so many layers of relationships that really dive down in. The reader finds this butterfly effect in play here. It's this idea that a solitary choice has the power to turn your life path into a different trajectory. Erin Wooler tries to protect her son from the guilt of failing to walk Avery home from school. She had gone home early. She was released early. She wasn't even at school, but he dealt with a guilt when she went missing. The mother tries to reassure the son, look, it's never just one mistake, but a series of mishaps that lead to a disaster. Then she herself starts to question, if only Avery hadn't misbehaved in class, if only Avery hadn't been sent home early. Even this, if only the key to the house wasn't hidden under the mat, if only her husband hadn't come home early. Wow. It made all of us think about this butterfly effect in life and what our little seemingly unimportant choices can affect. I had to ask you, as the writer, was Erin actually placing blame on more people with her theory that all these things contributed to her daughter's disappearance, instead of facing the true cause, the kidnapper and the victim?
Think so. I think she was just thinking like, well, this is the way I think, if only this hadn't happened, this wouldn't lead to that. And I think that's how I write my books. Something happens, it leads to something else, it leads to something else. And it's all these little minutiae that if one thing had gone a little differently, and I think that's very unsettling for people. For all of us, we think if just this one thing had gone differently, this might have happened. And it's a scary idea, to think that we have so little control over our lives, really. I mean, we do have control over our decisions, but we don't have control over all those little things that happen, that are outside of our control. So you're right. I mean, if I don't think she's trying to not put blame on who the real culprits are. I think she's just looking at life the way it happens. I mean, that's just what happens. That's just the way the world is. And I think that's what makes it so interesting.
It was intriguing. And just as people in the real world look at this story and we relate it to our real world. And this happens every single day. Well, think of a car crash. If I would have left the house 2 minutes sooner, if I would have taken a different route, and you could almost drive yourself crazy worrying about all these little.
But this is how a writer thinks. What if this had happened? What if that had happened? What if the other had happened? This is how my mind goes all the time. And that's how I grow my books, because, it's not just one thing that could happen. There's myriad things that can happen, which is really how I get so complicated with my stories.
And this is why we love them so much. Keep
Yeah.
doing it. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it.
I could see the lawyer influence there. The what if.
Yes, because we're taught what's the worst that could happen. So, two people are going into business together and they go, oh, we're friends, it'll be fine. And the lawyer goes, oh no, what's the worst that could happen? And the worst often does happen. So lawyers are taught to think about what might happen that's bad. And I'm a bit of an awfulizer myself, so I kind of
I love it. Well, you explored so many interesting aspects of the parent-child relationship in this story. And one of those aspects involves parents who are a little bit afraid of their children. And,
Mhm.
they're afraid that they'll act out and embarrass them. They're afraid that, they'll hurt their siblings, they'll hurt another child. They're maybe afraid that they'll hurt them, the parents. And I was thinking about this because you live with this child, this is your child forever, and there's not a lot of places to turn to for help when you have this
Mhm.
little niggling fear inside of you. And do you think this feeling is more prevalent than what people give voice to, of being afraid of your child just a little
I
bit?
think so. I mean, I personally know lots of parents dealing with difficult children, and you don't have to look very far, really, to see that there are a lot of troubled kids around. And I think parents are afraid of what they might do. I mean, just on drug addiction, just on one thing, you know, that's a problem. I know parents of children who are addicted to drugs, and that's scary. It's a very scary situation. Um, so yeah, I think I don't want to say kids are any different than they were generations ago, but I think the world is a more complicated place. There's more ways it can go wrong. Um, we just live in a really, I think, a really complicated time.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
In fact, I
Mhm.
I think that parents maybe start appeasing their children when they're
Mhm.
worried about how they're going to act out. And what happens, that creates an even more demanding adult down the
Mhm.
road.
Well,
So
you sound like William. You know, he wants to set boundaries for his daughter, but the boundaries don't really work. And the mother is like, don't be so rigid about your boundaries. And so they're not agreeing on how to handle the child, and you won't get experts agreeing either on how to handle the child. Um,
absolutely.
it's
Yeah.
tricky. It's tricky when they're oppositional and you don't know what to do, because sometimes if you say no, the opposition just gets stronger. You know, if you have a child who's acquiescent, that's one thing. But if you have a child who's absolutely rebellious, you just make things worse. So yeah, it's tricky to be a
Absolutely.
parent.
I think you tapped into a feeling that makes people feel uncomfortable about
Hmm.
parenting, that little fear
Yes.
of their children. Very
Yeah.
interesting.
Mm.
Or maybe just the fear of just wanting to be the best possible parent. We saw it in the book. They wanted to be the best possible parent. The dad made a mistake. He struck
Mhm.
her. She goes missing, and he's ridden with guilt. And it's just such a, you set us up in such an interesting scenario there that you really just were so curious about who the culprit was. You put so many little bunny trails out for us. There were other people, I want to tell the reader, on the street that we got to know through this incident, this traumatic
Mhm.
incident. Lives unfolded and were revealed in all sorts of wonderful ways that led us to suspect a lot of different characters in the book, which makes for the best mystery, I think,
Mhm.
because we've got all sorts of ideas and it's so much fun. I've got to say, I was really intrigued by this notion of guilt. I want to talk about it a little bit more. The character Nora also dealt with guilt. She believed, and this is an interesting, that because of wrongful behavior, people are sometimes punished in life in a whole different area of their life. That
Mhm.
maybe Avery was kidnapped because her parents or someone else did something wrong that had nothing to do with Avery's kidnapping, a whole different thing.
Mhm.
And I thought, yes, there are direct consequences for bad choices in life. But is this notion that totally unrelated events will be altered because of one bad decision a dangerous place to go? Some people call it karma. You know,
Mhm.
like you did something and it's going to come back at you and it's going to have
Yeah.
nothing to do with this situation, but in some other way. As the writer of this very intense story, what do you feel about this karma idea? Is it a dangerous place to go, to put your hope that karma is going to get your revenge for you, or that this is happening to me because of something I did 10 years ago unrelated? People tend to do this quite a bit. It's very superstitious.
Yeah, I'm not a karma person. I think in Nora's character, though, there's certain religious overtones to her upbringing. Her and her husband's quite religious, and it's the guilty feeling, like, you know, you've you've sinned, you've done something wrong, you're gonna have to pay the price. And she's feeling so guilty about her affair with William, and she so wanted to end it, and before it got found out. But now, of course, that the child's gone missing, she's terrified it's going to come out, and she just feels guilty. So she thinks that, you know, she's being punished for her affair, and it's completely irrational. It has nothing to do with reality, but that's her feeling because she's so anxious and so guilt-ridden, and she's been brought up to feel that religious kind of guilt. So that's why she goes there. None of the other characters go there.
No.
I don't think that way, but it's just an interesting aspect of her character.
I love
that I
that part
wanted
of
to
her.
develop.
I just want to say
Yeah.
for the record, I agree with you. I don't believe in karma either. I
Yeah.
believe in direct action, direct consequence. And let's think logically here with what you do in life. But it was
The same thing when people say everything happens for a reason. That always bugs me because I don't think things happen for a reason.
No.
You know, terrible things happen all the time that are random. They don't happen for a reason. A lot of life doesn't happen for a reason. So
I have to agree with you. And that's going to probably, some people are, hey, everyone believe whatever you want, but I don't think everything happens for a reason. I think everything
Yeah.
happens because of our own dumb, stupid choices that lead us
Well,
along the way.
yeah, but there's a lot of things that are out of your control. You know, people get sick. It's not, that didn't happen for a reason. You just got unlucky, you know?
Yep.
So you can't say this person got sick because they deserved it. It was just sheer poor luck. So yeah, there's a lot of random aspects to life. You know, and it's interesting to look at those, but I also like to look at how people's behavior affects what happens to them. But sometimes there are random elements. You know, you don't choose the child you get. You don't, you know, you can't plan your life perfectly. If you come home late or early, you might get hit by a car. It's just, there's so much of our lives that are out of our control. I find that scary, but it's true for all of us.
Yeah, it's a very interesting topic.
Mm-hmm.
Shari, your book, of course, was great fun, but you also gave us a little glimpse into the mind of a disturbed person. And I'm not going to say who this person is, but we see this person manipulating others. We see
Mm-hmm.
these narcissistic tendencies in this
Mm-hmm.
person. And this is a very serious personality disorder. And I was kind of curious to see what you thought contributes to people who start going in this direction and developing these disorders.
I don't know. And I wish that I'd done a degree in psychology because that's what I find so interesting. I think some people are born with personality disorders. Some people develop them, and I don't know where the line is. I think there's a lot of scary personalities out there in the world right now, and more people who seem to believe things that are irrational and that don't make a lot of sense. And like compared to 10 years ago, there seem to be more people that believe conspiracy theories, or just, you know, it's very interesting to me why at a given point in history, people might believe something that's quite irrational. It's fascinating to me. It's fascinating. I think some people are born sort of flawed or different or psychopathic or whatever. And some people, I think, just get carried away in some way, in some sort of strange thought process, and lose their rationality. It's fascinating to me. But yeah, it's also scary. Like the human personality is quite malleable, I think.
Well, I could see you were wrestling with some of those ideas, in particular with one character. And it was very interesting to see how this character was craving attention and more attention. And I was thinking to myself, in light of social media and many of the things that our children are being exposed to, I just wonder if we're creating people more susceptible to needing more attention.
Well, I think social media sets them up for needing more attention. I mean, it's geared for that. They want the little dopamine hit when they get a like on their, you know, 200 years ago when people were just working on the farm, it wasn't the same. And now attention seeking it's celebrated. The more attention you can get, the more respect you get from people. So we're encouraging attention seeking behavior, don't you think? You know,
absolutely.
I mean, just look at certain politicians where they just, you know, they just encourage that kind of narcissistic behavior. Look at me, look at me, look at me. And that wasn't like that 100 years ago. I mean, I wasn't here, but there wouldn't have been the internet for me to even know that there was that much attention seeking. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. I just think
Mhm.
in terms of one of the bigger themes of your story, are we going to have to pay the price? Are there consequences to some of these societal things that we are building up right now? And,
Oh,
you looked at that
absolutely.
on a small scale, but I was thinking about that on that bigger scale.
Yeah, absolutely. There's going to be consequences, and I worry about it every day.
Yeah.
Um, I think we're living in rather troubled times, and yeah, it worries me. It worries
Yeah.
me.
I
Yeah.
do feel like, just listening to the news and social media, I do feel there's a rise in narcissistic personalities. And I do think it has a lot to do with social media for all ages, not just children still being raised, but for adults as well. And
Mhm.
I know that they say that the narcissism is spawned quite a bit, sometimes in childhood, by overdoting or lack of attention. So
Mhm.
yes, nature versus nurture. What causes people, adults, to act insane? What causes us to be so self-absorbed? But whatever it is, yeah, it's going to be a problem. It's a very scary problem to think that that's where you're going to get your satisfaction out of putting yourself out on social media. And we
Mhm.
got in an interesting little bunny trail there, but it does tie back to the book. I've got to tell our readers, Everyone is Lying Here by Shari Lapena is just phenomenal. Every single one of these books will keep you turning the page ferociously because you're going to want to see what happens. And I told her before it started, I thought I had it figured out a few times. A little bit I did have it figured out, but not totally. But it's very satisfying ending, hugely satisfying. Just loved it. So before we let you go, just got to give us a glimpse of what you're working on next.
Well, I just handed in my next book to my editors. It's set in a rural location in Vermont this time. It's a bit different for me, but it's also the multiple points of view, finding things out. Everybody has an angle. It's similar but quite different in some respects. So, yeah, I hope people like it.
Oh, we
It'll be out
know
next July. Yeah.
next July, we know they're going to
Yeah.
love it. And we're just so grateful for you to doing this super creative, wonderful writing. And let me tell our listeners, you have to connect with Shari Lapena, and where you can find her is her website, sharilapena.com/books. She has a newsletter there that you can sign up for. She's on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Shari, it's
Mhm.
been a lot of fun talking to you today. It was
Thank you.
super fun reading this, and even fun talking to you.
Okay. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Oh, what a fantastic discussion with Sherry. She really has given us something to think about, but also be thrilled by. This is the kind of book that really has it all. And a couple things struck me. The one is this idea, when we think about attention seeking behavior, you had asked a question about that, and I had asked a question about that. But the magnitude of what we're doing in society today, especially with social media, was just incredible to think about that, because that is what we are rewarding, as she pointed out, and getting that dopamine dose. What do you think? Is this
Well,
something we need to deal
yeah,
with?
you're so right. And, let's face it, we all have a little narcissism in us. We do like a little attention. We do like to know that we're succeeding. We just do. We have a little bit of it. It's when it gets out of control and we have to have that attention all the time. Or maybe we have to be the center of attention all the time. Or how about we have to be the best all the time?
Yeah.
It's exhausting. That's exhausting. They have to, everyone has to always gather around them. They don't want to go to another person's party or birthday. In fact, they will ruin someone else's party or birthday because they want it to be about them. I guess that's when that crosses over to a dangerous psychotic behavior. And I don't think this is the average person by far. I think this is probably a very small amount of the human population. But yeah, you and Shari are right. I think some of the things that we're doing with all of this TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, social media, What are the other things? Snapchat. There's a million different things out there. Is spawning and raising young people to be gratified with that type of attention.
Absolutely. And listen, there's also a good side to that too, right? We can have an opportunity to showcase our artistic talent where there may not have been an avenue before. And I think having that balance is really what this is about.
Mhm.
You know, the benefits of being able to communicate with people, to see that people share your circumstances. Those are wonderful things.
Mhm. And I want to say, I just had to laugh about that karma thing because I don't believe in it. And I don't think everything happens for a reason, because if it did, we would be beings without freedom of choice. Everything would be micromanaged for us. And I do believe this, though. I believe what you sow, you reap. So in that regard, if you are going around arguing with everyone and fighting with everyone and causing turmoil, I want to picture it like those are seeds that you have sown, and what is going to grow up around you? Trouble. So direct action, direct consequence. I kind of believe that. And
Sure.
listen, I know we have listeners who believe in all sorts of things. Believe your thing. It's a free world. I'm a very big believer in you do you, just let me do me. I like that kind of thought.
Well, let me ask you, this title is very thought-provoking. Everyone here is lying. And I wanted to ask you about that because I was thinking in a given suburban street, like we have in the story, there were a lot of secrets. Do you think that's true? If you went to neighbors' homes, we've got affairs, we've got financial improprieties. What do you think?
Listen, what about secrets like I lie, or I stole something, or I didn't pay my taxes, or it goes and goes and goes. Do you remember that one movie by Jim Carrey called Liar, the Liar? Or you like,
Liar, liar.
I mean, he couldn't even get on the elevator and tell the truth the whole time. You look nice, ma'am. She didn't look nice. Everything built and built. So yeah, people, is it a healthy thing maybe not to tell the truth all the time? I mean, there's
Well, those are
probably a
white
fine
lies.
line there, right? White lie versus a big lie. Do people have lies and secrets? Sure. Yeah. Do people reveal everything going on in their lives? No, they tell you the good stuff. They don't tell you the bad stuff. Even on social media, do they right away come out and say stuff about their family or their children that are having a hard time? No, you don't want to disperse bad information all the time. So secrets can come in a lot of different levels. Are we hiding dead bodies in the basement? Probably not. Maybe for most of us, or at least I hope not. There
I
can
hope
be a
not.
lot of levels to secrets. I
Yeah.
say, yeah, sure. I say, yeah, I bet you there is. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very thought-provoking question that she's asking because, as we hold everyone's life up for examination, there's some things we're not proud of, things that we should be concerned about in every single life in this book. So I thought that was kind of a cool aspect
He
to
is
it.
so good about looking at different types of people just on a street in a neighborhood. The
Yeah.
first book, The Couple Next Door, you're not even talking about people miles away or countries away, right on your street. Okay, let's just put that in perspective. Everyone think of their own street right now and who lives there and what's really going on is just a lot of fun. It's very intriguing. And I guess that's why we love her book so much.
I'm just glad I'm not her neighbor.
Same
Wind
with
up in a
me,
book somewhere.
Kristen. So thanks everybody for joining us. We're so happy that you're here listening to us. We love diving down deep, and guess who we have coming for you? I've got to say it quick because the list is so long. Madeline Martin, the keeper of hidden books, Sandra Brown, out of nowhere, Alex Hay, the housekeepers, Rebecca Yaros, Iron Flame, Jake Tapper, All the Demons Are Here, Deneen Milner, One Blood, Jacqueline Michard, A Very Inconvenient Scandal, James Rowlands, Tides of Fire, Michael Ledwidge, The Girl in the Vault, and John Mars, The Vacation.
Listeners, we're growing every week. Thank you, thank you, thank you for listening, for sharing our socials. And I think you're craving these kinds of deep discussions that we're having with these fantastic authors. And we want you to stay on the radar with us. Of course, these are the good places where we talk about social media. BOOKSTORMpodcast.com, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Find us there. We've got some really cool stuff. And of course, if you want to see us in person and our authors, just find us on YouTube, search for Bookstorm, and you can find us Bookstorm and Podcast. We should come right up. Till next time, one of the best ways, of course, to brave the storm is to dive down deep into some life-changing fiction.